Next, we have James Balkovec.
Hey everyone. Actually, I have something to read from my glasses. From I believe it's Robert Mook.
Robert, yeah.
Robert Mook, right? Yeah. So I'm just going to read this here from him. He couldn't make the dinner this evening, but he wanted me to read this. So about Gilbert, his scientific accomplishments put him in the Science Hall of Fame. If there was a Hall of Fame for good people, he would be there too. I can think of no greater compliment and legacy. A great scientist and a greater human being, loved and respected by those who know him. That was from Bob. And then I had something a little, well, I was actually going to read, going to steal the last part of Paul Winder's obituary. Well, it wasn't Paul's obituary, it was Paul's obituary he wrote about Gilbert and nature. But he actually had it up on, he is there.
Still here.
But he had it on the last part of the slide, and I'll just sort of take the last line, and he just talked about Professor Stork's desire to help others, and he did that in a lot of ways. When I first came to Columbia, at Columbia things don't always work exactly right. So I showed up, and there was a housing freeze all of a sudden, and so I had nowhere to live. And so I went to Professor Stork. I'm like, what am I going to do? He said, well, we can, put you up in an international house, which is, I don't know if any of you knew that, but it's right next to, it's right by Riverside Church. Yep. And I said, oh, it's great. And he said, and I'll pay for it. So I'm like, oh, even better. This is a great deal, so far. So I went there, and I remember the room I had. It was right next to the bathrooms, and I remember laying on my bed at night and watching the walls bubble and stuff. So I wasn't really sure if I really wanted to be here anymore, but the housing freeze passed, and I eventually got a place in an apartment that Columbia didn't know that they had any available anymore, but I knew it was there because a friend of mine was living right next door to it, and we watched the guy move out. So I was able to move into there, and but it was Gilbert who helped me out on that first that first month or 6 weeks here. So when I'd be working in the lab, of course, we all have stories about Gilbert doing various things, and I was a little bit afraid that Verinder actually had taken my story I wanted to tell. But I too have a cleaning out the refrigerator story, which is how Verinder's story started. And this was a little different though. So it was, I think it was on a Saturday, and I had the lab that had the Bader collection in the cabinets along the wall, if I remember right. And so right next to that was the room that had all the refrigerators that stored all these chemicals and that needed refrigerating. And so a little odd, I was in there, I think this is like one of the first few weeks I was in there, and Professor Stork was cleaning out one of the refrigerators. And I can say the graduate program I came from, the graduate professor I came from, he never cleaned out the refrigerators for us. So I thought this was just a great thing to begin with. And but as all of you know, those refrigerated chemicals were pretty nasty. So you had he's going through the refrigerators, and he would he basically these bottles were all coated in who knows what. They were all stuck together, labels falling off and all that. And he was cleaning this all out, and he came across an Erlenmeyer with one of the frosted joints, caps on the top, and it was stuck. He's trying to get it off, couldn't do it. It was a flask with BF3 ether in it. Oh yeah. And so so he says, I can get this off, and he starts tapping it, taps it on the side of the he was actually working in a fume hood. And so he taps it, and it just still didn't come off. And I'm kind of watching out of the corner of my eye, because across the hall we had the lab where we developed TLC plates. So there was a hot plate in there and everything. So neither one of us are really thinking about this too much. And he's tapping a little harder. That's it. And finally he just gets a bit, and the top breaks off. And all of a sudden he bursts into flames, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, like thinking, I go running for the, for the fire extinguisher and everything. And he's just like, no. He brushes me off. He's like, no, go away. It'll go out. And he's walking backwards with his laptop on. So that was a pretty interesting experience. I think the ozonator was in that lab as well. But anyways, I have a lot of fond memories of Professor Stork, as I'm sure many of us do, and miss him very dearly. I'm sure he's looking. I think someone said this before. He's looking down on us right now, and he's thinking up a better way to do one of the syntheses that were presented today or something like that, and really wondering what the fuss is all about. So that's it.